Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Horsch from Line by Line, and today we'll be talking about manga covers from a series that is near and dear to my heart. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is a manga and anime series that I have been with for quite a long time. I own quite a few volumes physically, and I'm very fond of the art style above everything else. I'm quite fond of Hirohiko Araki's ability to write characters, but above all, I am a fan of his artwork. I believe it is beautiful and in a league of its own when it comes to manga and anime art. So today I will begin a series where I go through each of JoJo's parts and analyze the art of each volume cover, seeing how I can track Araki's skill development and the way he represents characters and story events in his covers. The art of a first manga volume cover is a real test of an author's ability to communicate the heart of their story. Best authors will create a sense that matches the tone they're trying to capture, whether that's mystery, adventure, or action. JoJo's is interesting because nowadays it's associated with wild action, but it was born as a mystery horror story, which Araki really effectively sells in the cover for Volume 1, Dio, the Invader. This cover does almost everything right. We're immediately shown the two most important characters, some amount of the setting and a strong atmosphere, and we even get focus on Danny, who's going to be important later. The color work and composition here are also insanely effective. Jonathan and Danny on the right both give a pleasant tone to the cover, but then there's the tombstones in the back, already creating a sense of unease. The presence of Dio holding a knife and the stone mask with the imposing all-black Joestar mansion in the back really capitalizes on that unease. Dio and Jonathan each have poses and outfits that quickly communicate a lot with very little here. Jonathan's ornately detailed shirt with the blue that matches the sky but also contrasts the moonlight, paired with his dorky little bow tie and an innocent expression, is really important in breaking up the tension and mystique present in the rest of this cover. This creates a sense of strength and reliability in Jonathan, setting him up as our protagonist for the story. Dio, on the other hand, has this puffier, less detailed purple outfit, which contrasts strongly against his yellow hair and the yellow moonlight. His pose, turned away from us but looking back over Jonathan's shoulder, makes it immediately clear what kind of character he is. A conniving schemer. Even a minor detail like the fact that he's holding a small knife as opposed to a gun or a sword or hitting a more dynamic pose gives a lot of immediate characterization to him. Lastly, the stone mask being here is a critical strength of the cover. Everything else we've seen, it's well illustrated but familiar. The stone mask, however, is a unique construct of JoJo's. Being this monstrous stone face, it opens up a lot of questions for the reader. What is this mask? What is it for? Why is it so important to be front and center on the first volume cover? It's really the last little touch on this horror mystery cover that opens the series phenomenally. The second volume cover does not live up to the first. Volume 2, The Thirst for Blood, drops all the horror or mystery ambiance, in my opinion. The volume itself covers from Jonathan's visit to Ogre Street through to the destruction of the Joestar mansion, a huge turning point in the series, from horror more so to the side of action. However, I feel like this covers a bit of a letdown, with not much of the dynamism of any of the tragic events that happen in this part of the story, or any of the new characters or new transformations that we witness across this arc. I don't have many words for this cover, all things considered. Jonathan takes up so much of the frame that the background becomes indiscernible, and while he's illustrated very well, and we can see Araki take a step up in rendering, color direction, and style, there's just very little substance. For such a critical turning point in the story, the introduction of the supernatural, and Jonathan losing it all, none of that shows through on the cover, which is a massive letdown. As we move into the more action-heavy segments of early JoJo, I think Araki hits a stumbling block, where the ambiance and aura he was really effective at creating for a mystery story doesn't really work. Volume 3, The Dark Knights, misses an opportunity to show off the titular and newly introduced knights, Bluford and Tarkus, instead having an oddly chummy illustration of Jonathan and Dio. Like, they look like teammates or rivals that butt heads, similar to Joseph and Caesar from later on. Color-wise, however, Jonathan is really effectively singled out, being the only red on this sea of yellow, Dio's defining color. This also fits his current role in the story, being a pupil, whereas Dio has already become the master. The composition and posing is very nice, with Dio taking up the majority of the frame, with Jonathan being relegated to a smaller section. But my one question is, where are his legs? Other than that nitpick, and maybe the lack of new characters, this cover is very eye-catching with its color direction. So while it fails to capture Volume 1's magic, it definitely is a step up over Volume 2. I'll be frank moving into this next cover. I'm not fond of solo character covers. I don't like characters just in a void striking a pose completely alone, even from series that I do like. I tend to prefer covers that indicate what happens in that volume. I think that makes for a more fun composition. All this to say, despite being a well-made illustration, I do not like or have many words for Volume 4, To the Chamber of the Two-Headed Dragon. This is a notable step up in style, skill, and color from Volume 2, but it's still not a very interesting piece of artwork. The all-green with sprinkles of red and yellow gives a strong sense of unity, and Jonathan feeling more powerful here, having more screen time is a good choice, but I'm reaching for compliments here. Since Volume 5, The Final Ripple, covers the finale of Phantom Blood and the beginning of Battle Tendency, it makes sense that the cover would pass the torch to Joseph and Caesar, similar to other parts' final covers.
Wrong!
Just kidding, this is another oddly friendly Dio and Jonathan cover, despite how long it took me looking at to realize that. Blue up until now has been a mostly Jonathan color, so allowing that to be the central identity for his final cover is really nice, and it makes me wonder if we'll be getting a lot of green Dio illustrations when he comes back in Stardust Crusaders. All jokes aside, reinforcing Dio's underhandedness with this subdued pose, and Jonathan looking almost afraid, throwing his hand up to protect himself, mixed with the multicolored speed lines, makes this a very action-packed volume cover, despite being more understated as far as posing goes. You could even say the blue is symbolic of Jonathan dying at sea, but that could also be a reach. Volume 5 is a really strong note to close out Phantom Blood with, and as a more action-packed finale to the series, it's incredibly effective, but I can't say it reaches the high of Volume 1. Phantom Blood has been an interesting showcase of Araki's development as a fledgling author. Moving forward into Battle Tendency, it will be very interesting to watch his growth and see how this affects his development of covers going forward. Moving right along to the proper start of Battle Tendency, the first volume with exclusively Battle Tendency chapters, we begin with Volume 6, JoJo versus the Ultimate Being, which I think the title is jumping the gun a little? Kidding aside, this is another phenomenal start to a part. Just like with Phantom Bloods, the first volume cover for Battle Tendency comes from a weekly Shonen Jump magazine cover. Araki is really effective at creating these intriguing illustrations that make you ask questions and get you interested. The posing of Joseph creates a very powerful diagonal axis that the whole composition abides by, which adds a real sense of dynamism to the piece, and the color contrast is so effective, where the colors are so saturated, yet they avoid becoming grating or unpleasant. The distorted stormy blue background really enhances the mystique and intimidation of Santana's eyes peering menacingly out towards you the viewer from behind Joseph. Speaking of Joseph, we have an interesting form of characterization in his coloring. In every Jonathan cover except Volume 3, his outfit was harmonious or even identical to the palette of the background. Here, however, and it will remain somewhat of a consistent trend for all of Joseph's appearances, Joseph is the complete antithesis of the background, being this loud, brash color, giving an insight to how he's the opposite of the understated gentleman Jonathan Joestar. Another amazing opener for Araki, but can he keep the momentum going this time? The cover for the 7th volume, The Red Stone of Asia, is similar to, but a complete step up from Volume 2. There's a lot more dimensionality to this pose, the colors pop so much more, and the little knickknacks attached to Joseph add to the illustration, as opposed to just getting swallowed up in it. The background is, while more abstract, more impactful to the composition, and it adds to the color palette rather than being this disgusting, muddy gray. Aside from how it shows Araki's skill development, this cover still doesn't have very much going on. While well made, I can't say very much. It might have been nice to see Santana or Caesar, but I can also see Araki holding back with this being only the 2nd volume of the part. After a cover I can respectfully describe as alright, Araki really shows out with Volume 8, The Final Trial, coming out with his most inspired composition yet. This cover makes the ensuing volume feel like a real event. The striking lines of light make the vibrant outfits of the Pillar Men really pop. Wamu, Cars, and AC/DC all feel unique given their outfits, position, and expressions on this cover. Even the slight difference of the locked-in, stoic stare of Cars and the ever so slightly aggressive scowl of Wamu is an effective communicator of characterization. The rich colors all over this cover, these deep oranges and these really vibrant purples, combined with the sheer white of these runway lights, all come together to form a really pleasant visual. The smaller Joseph here somehow manages to accentuate the Pillarmen in this composition, making them feel grand and imposing when compared to Joseph, who's so far only gotten large illustrations on these covers. The space is so evenly divided between focus on Joseph and on the Pillarmen, it almost makes me wish more Araki covers were this well composed. I'd say another cover worthy of being compared to Volume 1 or Volume 6. Usually I'd bang on about, wait, single character covers, show me wired back. But in this case, I really like this Joseph cover. The angle, the speed lines, Joseph's pose, and even the flowing scarves. All of the visuals on this cover convey motion, which rocks since we're still in the thick of JoJo being a huge, globe-trotting adventure story. The volume is also called Race Toward the Cliff of Death, so the momentum on the cover feels all the more effective. It also feels nice to see Joseph inherit Jonathan's green. It feels like a nice callback to Jonathan's all-green cover. Volume 10, The Crimson Bubble. We finally got our group cover, and here's Caesar. He dies in this volume. The color composition here is really nice, with Caesar being surrounded by the two Joestars in purple, who are each in turn surrounded by the snow white that Caesar shares. There's something very understated and effective with this whole layout, especially with the pink logo being slightly desaturated, tying it all together. It's also nice that we get the background tying into the plot, with the snowy hills of Switzerland, even if I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity to not have the hotel in the back. This cover is outstanding, and it really shows that Araki is starting to get into his element. While Volume 11, The Warrior Returns to the Wind, only covers the battle between Joseph and Wamu, the next volume is a handover cover segueing into Part 3, so I view Volume 11 as the true finale to Battle Tendency. As a finale, this isn't as remarkable as 8 or 10, but it's such an iconic, dynamic image that I cannot deny the praise that it's due. First off, color work. The strong, direct contrast between the nearly all-purple Joseph and the burning red and orange of the Asia mask is so eye-catching, and the mask being the color of the sunlight, symbolizing the conquest of the sun, is such a strong choice. A beautiful touch to me is that Caesar's headband is yellow and blue, contrasting Joseph's purple and the orange of the Pillarmen, being his last posthumous beacon of identity in this cover. Joseph has such a strong core diagonal line at the heart of his pose that lends such a dynamism to this cover, making it really sell the finality of this whole ordeal. Everything in this cover is such a beautiful, climactic summation of Battle Tendency, which is why I view it as the true finale, even if we've got one final volume to tackle. I'm not gonna lie, it kind of pisses me off that Jotaro is posed like he owns the place when he has one single chapter in this volume. You're not him yet, buddy. Honestly, I really do like the cover of Volume 12, The Birth of a Super Being, because it really does manage to convey the passing of the torch to Jotaro. Joseph stands on the right, peering over his shoulder to Jotaro on the left, following a literal passage of time that exists in manga, reading right to left. It's also nice that Jotaro and Joseph have outfits that are inversions of each other, with Jotaro's outfit being green with yellow highlights, and Joseph being yellow with green highlights. It really manages to make them feel familial, and even has that connection to Jonathan's green. The minor blue accents harmonizing with this mysterious blue vortex background is an immaculate touch, and makes this cover feel like no wasted motion. A perfect and seamless segue into Part 3, Stardust Crusaders. I don't have much to say in this outro. I'd like to thank you for watching. I'd like to thank my friend Jalamoth for inspiring me to make this video, and also having a video that I can copy the editing for. Other than that, look forward to at some point the Stardust Crusaders and Diamond is Unbreakable video coming out at some point. Wait about 300 years for that. And look forward to anything else I might put out. Have a great day, and thank you for watching.